Hey friends. So I I found a voice memo in my phone from a couple days ago where I had a flash of insight right after doing one of my video posts, and it has, in the kind of way that things often go, it's had a few days to just steep, and for me not to really consciously work with it too much. But then today it kind of came back, and it relates to so many of the um, little vignettes that I feel like I've been seeing over the past week or two. I um, in short, what came through, and I'll unpack this after I say it, but what came through was this impression that transformation at its most fundamental level is simply the art of seeing the obvious, which is kind of its own. There's a kind of levity or a kind of humor to that phrase, because seeing the obvious, the obvious is ostensibly something that it's easy to see, that it's not difficult, it's obvious. And yet, what I was finding where this kind of insight came from was from sitting in meditation, doing my yoga practice. The moments in my life, this happens at the piano sometimes too, moments in my life where I have a kind of settled presence, I have some stillness, I have some objectivity, and noticing that the insights that would come through aren't along the lines of really intricate, complicated, new intellectual epiphanies about how something works, or some kind of like large scale systemic relationship among complicated emotional or psychological pieces of my psyche. It was never, there was nothing intellectual about it. The insights that would come through would be ping, the most obvious things that if you asked me, is this true, I would have said yes, absolutely. Like I wouldn't have even thought about it. But yet in meditation they show up as their little obvious selves, and they strike something within me that is a whole other level. And now all of a sudden I am seeing the obvious. The thing that's been right in front of me the whole time, that I would have intellectually said I agree with and would have emotionally felt like I'm on top of it, all of a sudden shows up and kind of illuminates for me. Here you go. And I'm trying to think of the example that this post was that I did on that post. It'll come to me, but the point of this, and where this kind of took me, is that transformation is really a matter. I'm not saying this is the only way to describe it, but one way of describing it is to see that we are progressively capable of seeing the obvious, really seeing the obvious, really seeing what's there. And this is where I love Chögyam Trungpa's perspective, because he's so much about putting the focus on our ordinary life, starting with the basic building blocks of our life, our house, our family relationships, our food, our sleep, our work, what are the day-to-day things? How do we actually live our life? And just keeping our focus on the kind of, on a very concrete level, and not allowing it to become lofty and intellectual, never allowing that intellectual ego to sort of start hovering above the world. So now we're up in this analysis mode where everything moves at the speed of light and at the speed of thought, and we're cooking along, and we're finding connections, and we're living this kind of buzzing, inspiring sometimes, but very high energy, and generally kind of, when we step back a bit, not necessarily always going anywhere, kind of intellectual fantasy. Maybe I'm talking about someone we know, maybe. But so I love that Chögyam Trungpa brings that the focus back to the concrete and the here and now. And I also love his description, which I definitely mentioned, maybe even on the post that I've been referring to, where he talks about these what in the West we describe as peak states, peak performance states, or the zone, states where our brainwave, they've done brainwave experiments, and they see all the various waves that are active, and then when some of them go dormant, there's still this kind of, I think it's the theta waves that stay active, even in the deep, like a meditator will like fuse with the universe and have a feeling of total oneness, and there's still like this one little kind of brainwave cooking along. They've done as much scientific experimentation on this as we have the capacity to do. And in the West, these states are sort of considered the crowning achievement of meditation, of either meditation or of some, highly developed skill, because that's generally how we access them. And Chögyam Trungpa is like, no, these are the most ordinary states for a human mind to be in. This is what the mind is, essentially, when we get all the other clutter out of the way. And again, that phrase of seeing the obvious kind of shows up for me. It's like, all we have to do is be, observe, and see what's there. And again, it was really, I'm reminded of the end of the meditation retreat that we did, I guess almost 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. At the end of it, the teacher said that Chögyam Trungpa used to really kind of, he was very much a everybody should live their own life. Everybody has to choose their own practices and live the way they want to. Everybody's free. Everybody is free to choose how they want to live, but everybody should meditate. Nobody should not be meditating, and if you're not meditating enough, you need to meditate more. He was kind of like, in a tongue-in-cheek way, saying something that is very serious, which is meditation is everything. Without meditation, we can't. Without meditation, we are completely fused with the illusion of the body, the illusion of the mind. Meditation is the act of observation. It's the act of stepping back. I just don't, I think that there may be people, and I even feel like I've met some people who have practices that maybe aren't the same as sitting meditation, that somehow result in that somehow create the space, the repose and the poise and the objectivity. But I sure don't have anything that does that other than meditation. Meditation for me is the way that happens. And it's almost like if I want to be very fused with my experience, then then the recipe doesn't call for that much meditation. Don't put too much meditation in the pot. But if you want to have some, but and of course being fused with experience means being enslaved to it. It means being unable to distinguish between ourself and all the attributes that we've collected, and which are all cause and effect chains, and it means being dragged along by chains of cause and effect. It means kind of surrendering to the fact that that's what we're going to do with our time, is be compelled through cascades of cause and effect. If we're okay with that, then go meditate. But the truth is, it would be pretty hard to be okay with that if we actually understood that was happening. We might say we're not okay with that because we've never really felt any other way. But even just a glimmer, even just a little glimpse of what happens when we gain some objectivity, and we can begin to distinguish between our awareness and our felt sense of identity. Once you've had a glimpse, there's no going back. And once I've had a glimpse, it's like, how much of that can I fit into my life? How much meditation do I need to add into the soup? I made a pot of soup yesterday. Maybe that's why ingredients and pots are coming up for me right now. Anyway, but yeah, the art of seeing the obvious. When we're fused with experience, you can't see the obvious. We are the obvious. The obvious is right here. It's stuck to our face so close that we can't actually even see it. It's like it's right there, smushing itself into our eyeballs. It's so obvious, but it's also invisible. And understanding that what we're going for is not necessarily profound or esoteric or complicated or not that it's not complicated, but that it doesn't. That's not how we get clarity. That's not how we get to where we want to go. We get there by being available for what's right in front of us. Yeah. I should listen to myself. I should be listening to myself. Thanks for watching, people. Appreciate you. Much love. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.